Of all the forms of fighting known to man, one name strikes fear further into the hearts of those who hear it: bare knuckle. For hundreds of years, the men of Britain have rammed their unprotected fists into each other's bodies to decide who was the hardest of them all. From noblemen to travellers to family men and gangsters, being a bare knuckle fighter is something that marks you out from the rest of society. It's a thoroughly British blood sport that gradually sank further into the criminal underground as the rest of society became more civilised. It's a sport of legend, honour and astonishing violence. Bare knuckle fighting is a world that most people think they understand, but few have actually seen. Now, a number of fighters and promoters are trying to take it into the mainstream, setting up the most anticipated bare knuckle fight in over 150 years: America versus Britain. And I wanted to know if the sport can ever truly take itself out of its underground past. The common perception of bare knuckle fighting is that only Irish travellers and East End hard men still do it. But in actual fact, there's still a thriving underground, and the fighters come from all walks of life. And it originates here in the UK. I'm here in Hinckley, just outside Leicester, to meet Andy Topliff. Now, Andy runs a promotion company called Bad Promotions, and what he aims to do with that company is to kind of bring bare knuckle into the mainstream.
It's an up-and-coming fight company, and I do it because I love the sport and I want the sport to grow.
Intrigued to know more about the history of bare knuckle and why now it seems to be on the up, we met at a patriotic pub just outside Leicester. Andy, how's it going?
Hey,
nice to meet you.
You right? All right?
Yeah. What is the history of bare knuckle fighting in England and Britain?
Bare knuckle fighting as a sport was absolutely categorically English. It was an English thing. The Europeans feared Englishmen for their fighting ability. It's actually a British heritage, bare knuckle fighting is. It's where boxing comes from. Certainly in the 18th century, very, very a big sport. Even the royal family, they would want to know who won, you know, if it was a big fight. They were like superstars of today.
And how about your own background? How did you get into bare knuckle?
From a very young age, to be honest with you. You know, I was brought up in the travelling community. My hands, they're destroyed basically now. They're deformed because of it. Obviously, in the bare knuckle world, there has always been quite a lot of input with criminals, do you know what I mean? I wanted to push all of that out. I wanted that gone. You know, I decided to do Be Bad and keep it as a proper sport. I really want to get this regulated and get it mainstream. We started the first UK belt since, you know, way over 100 years. And then I thought, well, one extra step and we'll go for the Atlantic belt, which is a real historic event. I'd always wanted to get, you know, an American to come over. Jason Young, this is the man who I've dreamt of getting over into this country. We were making history with this guy being here. The last time an American was in this country fighting for a belt, you know, against the UK champion, 1863. It's a big deal.
Jason had flown into the UK prior to the fight and had surrounded himself with some of the most knowledgeable fighters in the UK, including ex-bare knuckle champion Paddy Monaghan, famous for his friendship with Muhammad Ali.
3 years it's took us to get you here, isn't it?
3 years, but I'm here. Yeah. No excuses.
No excuses,
I'm here.
That's it. And you're going to
nowhere to run.
Prove the boys wrong, innit, eh?
Oh, yeah.
But he couldn't stick around for long, as he was off to Wing Chun Grandmaster Samuel Kwok's martial arts retreat in Blackpool, a man who apparently once trained with Bruce Lee. Clearly, Jason was taking this fight very seriously. But whilst my own experiences of fighting are fairly pathetic, I was intrigued to meet a man who'd been fighting since the age of 10, James Gypsy Boy McCrory from Newcastle, a living legend in the bare knuckle scene, and the man pitted up against Jason Young in the Atlantic title fight. We met him at his local haunt, a 50s themed diner in the centre of town.
So what's good here? Everything is good, but the burgers are huge. Like, the reason why I come here is because bird brings this here.
Yeah.
Just come here and it doesn't sell beer, you know what I mean? So that's the truth, like.
Your nickname is Gypsy Boy. Where does that come from?
Obviously, I've travelled all over. I've lived in Ireland and worked all over.
Is being Irish a big part of your kind of fighting heritage?
Yeah. I love Ireland. I love going back there. I love seeing my mum. I love it. I love spending time with my family, honestly. I love sitting on the settee, like there, cuddle, watching TV, me, big softy. I love my family. You know, loads of people, they, like, you know, they treat me, get full of rides and all that crap, but I just prefer to get full of Guinness and full of food, you know.
It's a much more fun way of doing it.
Aye. My days have been a model of well gone, so don't worry about the old six-pack anymore, me, you know what I'm saying?
You got the keg?
That's it, I've got a full keg and all.
James, a self-professed softie and family man, invited us to his house to meet his charming and long-suffering girlfriend, Leanne.
I love being living sort of part, you know, I'm Jack the lad, but then I don't know where my bread's buttered, you know what I mean, and I've got a good girl and she's put up with a lot. Hopefully, one day, I'll marry her, like, you know.
What does she do?
Drives me fucking bonkers, mate. Alright, toots. Just how are you, lads?
Yeah. Hey, how's it going? How's life?
Just want a cuppa?
I'm rushing, I'm fine.
Me and James are very, very different. Like, you couldn't get two people more different in regards to what we're like, how we've lived our lives, choices we've made.
How do you feel about him being considered like a legend?
I find it funny because it's James. He gets fan mail now, which is quite funny. The person you see on like the fights on YouTube, that's not him. Like, I know it is, but that's not the person I know. I don't like it, to be honest with you. When you come back from the Dave Radford fight, his face was really bad. There was blood on me pillow. Like, I cleaned him the next morning.
That's what's more bothered about. Try to wash the duvet twice.
There was blood over the pillowcase, like, it was just awful. It's not just about him having a fight, it's the effect that it can have on us in regards as a couple. Build up to a certain fight, he's like a time bomb. Last summer I had a bit of a bad time and I thought, you know, this is not working, I'm away. But I've never seen anybody fight as much as what he did to get me back.
Having learned about the origins of bare knuckle and spent time with some of the biggest names in the game, it was time to see it in the flesh. BBAB was holding an event in Colwyn Bay, North Wales. The first fight between a pair of seemingly well-matched middleweights was over in seconds. The second and last fight of the night was something that will stay with me forever. Seth Jones, a 46-year-old local solicitor and lunatic known as the Bangor Hammer, took on a man 20 years younger than himself, only to go the distance in a fight that was as controversial as it was thrilling. The solicitor was bending the rules somewhat.
Stab me when you know it was fun. Give up now, son!
After what seemed like hours, they called it a draw. It seemed odd to see so much blood in what was supposedly a stalemate, but I couldn't call a winner either. Seth seemed like he'd taken more abuse, but Aaron looked exhausted.
It was my first fight, put myself forwards for it when I saw it on the internet for a 13-stone fighter.
How does it feel fighting someone who's 20 years older than you?
Don't really matter, I've had street fights with older people since I've been young, you know what I mean? Used to get in trouble fighting and all that lot.
Do you think it'll make you a more peaceful person?
Yeah, I'm peaceful anyway.
But you also get in a lot of street fights. How does that kind of
I used to
work
get
out?
in street fights when I was younger because I used to hang around with the wrong crowd. My adrenaline was going a bit too much. Now I know how it feels, I can control it a little bit more, I think, in my next fight. I couldn't shout with my left eye, I got poked in it, but I think, yeah, it's a good result from both of us. I'm chuffed with it.
And how do you feel right now?
Buzzing.
Do you think you'll feel worse tomorrow morning?
You know what I mean? I've had worse than this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does it feel fighting guys who are, what, considerably younger than you?
Half my age.
Half your age?
That's just the nature of bare knuckle boxing. You know, I fought guys older than myself. I don't mind fighting younger guys, I don't mind. I just like fighting.
Do you fight in the streets?
No, them days. I used to have a lot of fights when I was younger, built up a bit of a reputation in the area, but it was a huge mistake in my life. Being a bit of a thug to being a bit of a drug smuggler to going to prison, and then I realised, you know, this is not the life, and so I decided to go back to school and studied law.
In the time I'd spent in the world of bare knuckle so far, I began to realise that the sport had a kind of gravitational pull for lost souls. Many of the guys we'd spoken to seemed to be people who'd made bad decisions in life, and perhaps in bare knuckle they'd found a way to utilise their talents, which happened to lay in a realm that normal society finds barbaric. However, I wondered if organised violence was a cure or a symptom for angry young men.
James Lambert.
Hello friends, it's James, the author of Be Happy in 24 Hours. I used to be a very unhappy person, very violent person, bare knuckle fighter, bouncer and unlicensed boxer. And these are some of the tips and strategies that helped me change my life and literally become the happy person that I am today, helping society and being the happy coach.
Retiring from the sport undefeated, James Lambert had taken a complete U-turn from his life of violence and reinvented himself as a lifestyle and fitness coach, calling himself Mr. Happy. How long have you lived here?
Crikey, what has it been now? I think it's coming up to 2 years. We basically moved here for the peace and quiet, and as you know, it's you can see for yourself, it's cul-de-sac. It's very peaceful. We've got super neighbours. Did you want one sugar, my friend?
So, you were always a fighter?
There was always this fascination with fighting. I was an unhappy, angry, violent person. I went out into the world, and lo and behold, I found other angry, violent, scared young men. You know, somebody would catch my eye, I would catch theirs, and a fight would ensue. It was that ridiculous.
Can you remember your first bare knuckle fight?
Of course. Mixed emotions even to this day, because I was terrified. I used fear as a form of energy, transmuted that into positive energy that drove me into my victories. But again, I found it very empty. When I got home, I was still left with my problems, not just outside, but in my mind. So the fight did nothing to make me happy.
And did you know other fighters who felt similarly?
Well, you see, this is the thing, it's never spoken about, certainly not within that world where emotion is immediately and very directly equated with weakness.
A leopard can change his spots, and that's very important because I hear it a lot, and it's a mind virus, and we accept things because they're said. They're not always true. We have to examine this. And so I want you may be a parent and your son or daughter could be going through difficulties. Never give up on them. Never give up on them. Your brother, your son, your friend could be an alcoholic, a drug addict. Never give up on them. People have the power to change inherently in them. I've done it myself.
Even when you win, there was great pain. You know, my ribs could have been fractured or broken, always cuts to the face. But worse than that was the mental trauma. It was realising again what I had done, the person that I was becoming, and that really did affect me mentally. I think now looking back, I became depressed. I suppose there were thoughts of self-harm maybe, thoughts of actually, if this is it, I don't actually want to be, I don't want any part of this. And that was actually profoundly upsetting for me, and I felt terrible. So that was actually a pretty low evening, and I'd like to say it was the last, but that did happen a lot.
James had removed everything that would remind him of his past life as a violent young man, apart from a punch bag which still hangs in the garage where he coaches his clients. Do you still hit the bag?
Actually, I've personally chosen not to. I suppose it's about 2 years ago when I decided to fully refrain from fighting, and for me that's violence in word, thought and deed. So for me, at this current point in my life, I'm open to change. It might change next week. You know, other people can keep it controlled. I fear that the anger wouldn't just stay here, and again it would leak into other aspects of my life. So I've just made a personal decision to not hit anything, if you like, for a while. And so far I've been good to my word.
Meeting James is really surprising because here you've got a guy who's in the bare knuckle game for years and came out of it undefeated, yet in some way he feels kind of ashamed, and he will admit that he is haunted by his past. And looking at what he does now, it seems that his entire life is this kind of struggle to put that to bed, and he does seem to be winning that struggle, admirably so. And the Mr. Happy thing, I guess, is a way of him keeping that down. But behind that Mr. Happy persona, you do see flashes of the old James, this kind of machine that used to render men unconscious, as he said. But he will be the first to admit that, and he says that, you know, he hasn't conquered his demons yet. Now, in this kind of suburban life, perhaps he's fighting his biggest battle of all. The first UK versus US bare knuckle fight in over 150 years is just days away. So we've come back to Newcastle to see James McCrory, who's in the middle of his training preparations.
Get in, weights down. Like all your opponents, you've got to give them the chance at the start, you know what I mean?
So when you're coming out, are there any kind of like routines?
Newcastle means a lot to us, and Ireland does, and we wear Newcastle top and me Irish shorts. Bastard.
Where would you like to see the sport going?
Maybe 10, 15 years time, you know, it'll be hitting big arenas, you know, but I'll be, well, maybe, I may not. If the money comes good, I'll look after myself, I might still be fighting in 15 years time. It's all about the pressure, like. It's all about the pressure, boys. So I can handle it now, innit? Thrive under pressure. Woo! Cheers, mate. Right out.
Can you explain to me what it's like in the pit?
It's only like 3 bales are here, by this way, 3 bales are here this way, and you're taking 2 steps, you know, into the centre, and then you're there, you know. I'd be like faking with a job or moving my hand about, you know what I mean? If you can like establish your job, it's a good thing, you know what I mean? And then like, obviously you get the 1, 2 in, you know what I mean? And then, you know, obviously you're going to move your head a bit, you know, what I'd be trying to do if someone's jobbing me, you know? And then just like, maybe just come and do a bit, or come up to the centre, and bang, bring a body shot in. And honestly, I'd much rather hit me with 10 in the jaw than 1 good one there, you know, because it really hurts.
How's it feel when you get one of those there?
I can't even describe it, mate. It's the worst feeling in the world when you can't breathe and you've got a gum shield in your mouth. You try to spit the gum shield out, but you can't because you can't get your breath to get the power of your lungs to spit it out. You're going red, you're starting to see little fucking stars. Then you're going lower and lower and lower to the ground. It's horrible. It's horrible. And eventually your hands will drop and then boom. Good night, you know what I mean?
And if I wanted to knock you out and I'm looking for the chin about here, right?
You haven't brought your 14-pound hammer here, mate. So you're all fucking out of luck.
You mentioned being punch drunk earlier. Do you think you could have like a wake-up call at all?
You know, I've had some great nights with the boxing and with the bare knuckle. If I wasn't so brain damaged, I could tell you them all, you know what I mean?
Do you worry it might affect your memories of your family in those kind of important moments and what have you?
Well, it probably already has, you know. I mean, I can remember the day that my dad died. I can remember it all, every single second of it. But I can't remember much otherwise, like. Could get hit by a bus, you know, and I wouldn't have any memories at all, so it's just a risk you've got to take, isn't it? That's why the tattoos on my back, you know. McCrory is a Catholic cross with a shamrock in for my dad, and no fear. You haven't got to be scared out in life, man. You just go for it, whatever happens, happens. There's a lot more better fighters than us out there, you know, but the difference, I've got the balls to fucking, I don't just talk about it, you know. If I say I'll train for a fight, I'll train for a fight, doesn't matter where I go. I don't think Leon and my mother realise just how big of a part of this is in my life, you know. It's fucking great when you can take someone's best digs and you can give them your best and see who comes out better.
From spending time with James, what I really began to understand was this idea of heart. I think a lot of us throw it out as like a kind of, just a cliche. But actually, looking at James and the way he conducts his life with this kind of very emotional attitude, towards the death of his father and his relationship with his family. And what he does is he managed to channel that and bring it into the ring. He breaks every cliche. I mean, he's not one of these guys who comes around toting his unbeaten record. He knows he's been beaten a few times, and he literally takes it on the chin and accepts that. And maybe he's the perfect fighter because he's fallible.
I love fighting. I'm the American that's coming over here across the Atlantic. I mean, it's a big deal. I don't think I'm gonna lose. That's not even in my mindset, you know, it's not even an option to me. You know, I've been a fighter my whole life. I feel like I'm the more skilled fighter. I'm the bigger fighter. I don't really give a damn what anybody says because people are always gonna have opinions. People are always gonna doubt you. None of that matters. What matters is what happens in that pit when it's me and him. Me and James, I'm very ready to go.
It was the bare knuckle extravaganza down in South London. The US versus UK transatlantic showdown, the biggest bare knuckle fight in recent history.
2 champions, one from America, one from the UK, fighting for this belt. It's 1863, and this belt.
But before the title fight, we were treated to a few other tear-ups in the build-up to the main event. It was a festival of physical abuse.
Blood, guts, glory. I want to see people going for it.
Bare knuckle, it is the ultimate sport. Yeah, ultimate tear-up. Just enjoy seeing getting in there, you know, real punches and no fucking around, you know what I mean?
There's no holds barred, more or less, you know. They really go for it. Violence and plenty of chances of getting badly hurt.
It's a fucking good buzz, you know what I mean? It's one of the best buzzes I've ever had, you know what I mean? Like, it's up there with sexy friendly.
England is the home of bare knuckle.
I think the British, it's in the blood.
We're hard, ain't we, you know what I mean? Fuck the fucking rest of the world.
Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm here for Jason the Machine Gun Young, USA.
Jason the Machine Gun Young, fighting for the Atlantic Heavyweight title against the UK champ, James McCrory, and I'm ready to kick his ass.
Jason was everything you'd expect an American fighter to be. Brash, verbose, and massively patriotic. He'd even referred to himself as the bald eagle on a few occasions.
Unfortunately, today's bare knuckle boxers are mostly just boxers. I bring a different style. For me, it's natural. I tune everything else out, the crowd, the noise, the cameras, everything, and just focus on my opponent. Just in the zone. I'm the first American to come over here since 1863 and fight for the title, so there's much more pressure on him. Because I'm the unknown, I'm coming for the United States, we have a huge advantage.
It was 10 o'clock, the scheduled time for the fight, but James was still nowhere to be seen. Rumours that he was refusing to come down were spreading throughout the crowd. Some said he was in a cab on his way from Newcastle. Others said he bottled it. This didn't sound like the James I knew, but time was ticking on, and the success of the night depended on his appearance. Jason, who'd been in training for weeks, had become increasingly agitated.
Well, I don't know what happened. He got stuck up in Newcastle. I mean, we've known about this fight for a very long time. I came all the way from America. If I was back in America, I'd have 100 friends who would come get me immediately and bring my ass down here. So I basically just told him, you know, get down here. Seems like there's a lot of excuses with today's fighters. Back in the day, somebody calls somebody out and, you know, if you're going to be disrespectful, you got to back it up.
People were beginning to lose hope and headed towards the exit. It was looking likely that history wouldn't be made tonight. And suddenly, like the angel of the north, he rose. James McCrory, a few stones heavier, a few inches to his beard, and wearing a Newcastle football shirt, had arrived. Looking slightly bleary-eyed, he had fallen asleep for the entire cab journey. But was he too tired, too full of Guinness, to take on the machine gun? After weeks of build-up, training, mind games, and the threat of one of them not even turning up, the Atlantic title fight was about to start. We were here, on the edge of history. America versus the UK, toe-to-toe, bare knuckle. the machine gun's fist hammered down on the struggling gypsy boy, it seemed that the title might be heading across the Atlantic. But McCrory had other ideas. And he'd done it. James McCrory had made sure that Britain had won the bare-knuckle bragging rights, and Young and his entourage were on their way back to Utah with their tails between their legs. His victory marked a step into the big time, not just for Andy Topliffe's company, but for bare-knuckle as a sport. And perhaps it had moved closer to everyone's dream of it becoming the biggest, nastiest, and most exciting blood sport in the UK.